I think of DC and music, the first thing I think of is just Chuck Brown. And for people who aren't from DC, I describe Chuck as, imagine that you have an uncle or a grandfather who's the coolest cat ever, but you share him with a few 100,000 people and 4 generations. So that's what it's like growing up in DC with Chuck as a presence. He's just like this, he's this guy that everybody loves, and he will turn every party out.
Everybody in my family can sing or play some kind of instrument. My mother played accordion, and she played the harmonica. And I learned to play a little piano at the age of 7. So I've always been musically inclined, because when I was 4 or 5 years old, I used to go down by the railroad track and just beat on the rocks down there, and the train go by. I would keep up with the rhythm of the train, And my mama said, that boy's got my rhythm. I said, he's gonna be something. And by the time I was 7, I learned to play a little piano in church, and I played a little bit up until I was around 11 years old.
One thing that's interesting about Chuck's story, which relates to me growing up as a DC native, is Chuck was from North Carolina. And so Chuck's story is kind of a microcosm of, the black story of Northern migration. Because when I was growing up in the 80s, so many of my peers were like first generation from the South, like their parents or their grandparents, their parents or their grandparents came up from the South. So Chuck is DC's, kind of shining example of the Great Migration and how it manifested in the culture of northern urban cities connected to, our rural, southern and, Civil War, and pre-Civil War roots. So yeah, Chuck is like emblematic of our journey as a people.
On my go-go side, our godfather, Chuck Brown, was my musical influence as far as go-go is concerned. And so that's why you get this hip-hop go-go thing with me. Like, one side of me is hip-hop, the other side is go-go. As far as go-go is concerned, it's all about Chuck Brown. It's all about the godfather. And I'm just proud that I was able to be a part of the culture in the inception, you know what I mean, from a DJ and artist perspective.
Some of y'all might know this, some of y'all don't. Get your hands up. Some of y'all might get with me, some of y'all won't, but listen. Let me clear my throat. Get your hands up. Oh, come on, get your hands up. Hey, that's me. I hope they don't mind. Let me clear my throat. Get your hands in the air, let's go. Get your hands in the air, let's go. It got a little something like this. Now, y'all wanna party like we do. Y'all wanna party like us. Let me hear you say, Y'all wanna party like we do. Y'all wanna party like us. Let me hear you say, When I say, you say, When I say, hey, you say, how. Hey. When I say, hey, you say, yo, hey. When I say stop, you say go, stop. When I say freeze, you just freeze one time. When I say freeze, stop on the dime. When I say freeze, you just freeze one time. When I say freeze, stop on the dime. Freeze. To all the ladies in the place, you got real hair, real eyes, real fingernails. You got a job, you going to school, you're a good mother, and you don't need nobody to help you handle your business. Independent ladies, make some noise. So, take the flavor of the rhythm I wrote, and while I got a chance here, let me clear my throat. Oh, let's go, y'all. How about some beer? I hope you don't mind. Let me clear my throat. Get your hands in the air, let's go. Get your hands in the air, let's go. Come on. It's got a little something like this. Now we need to have fun of my show, please. Yeah. Somebody, anybody, everybody in this joint, make some noise in this joint, man!
Talk about homegrown artists in DC. Man, I love doing this with people who don't know about DC because I just run down the list. Michelle and Dege Ocello, you know, who came up playing go-go.
Never before her did you have a woman who was openly bisexual or queer, you know, making hits that she didn't have to hide her identity. That was part of who she was. We don't do a high volume of people, you know. I think even at its peak when DC was 80% black, that means it was around 500,000 black people living in the borders of the District of Columbia, and probably another million or so living in the larger DC area. So it's not like New York where you got 20 million people, or LA where you've got 15 million people, or Chicago, which is probably 2 or 3 times the size as a market as DC. So we don't have a large number of people, but the people who come from here change culture and music.
Duke Ellington, who was born here, down in Foggy Bottom, one of his last houses were here on George Avenue. And Duke Ellington, of course, is when we think of jazz.
Duke Ellington's Jim Brown for football. Ain't nothing else. He quit when he felt like it. But different personality, but I mean respected by the masses. I can't get past his dressing. Impeccable. He touched the piano. And then he's a composer. And I've heard his voice, in between on the songs. I didn't have the honor to be there. But that's it. Without, a Duke Ellington or Roberta Flack and all the other ones who come after them, there is no genre without them. There is no, they just did something that I think it's unique to this area, like speaks to the depth of humanity.
Roger Buckhead was the wailing mailman, the great, and many people don't know, but he could have gone anywhere. Miles Davis, all the people called him to play, but he stayed home because he wanted to raise his family. He delivered the mail at night, and he played all over. And Shirley Horn was her songs. You Won't Forget Me was her most famous one.
Most people, when they think of local talent that has come, graced the stage, think of Duke Ellington. But one of, I think, the unsung heroes who's local is Lillian Ivati. A lot of people might not recognize her, but she was an opera singer. And I believe she was the first Black opera singer to sing with a European opera group.
Marvin Gaye's from here.
There wouldn't be a Raheem Devon without Marvin Gaye.
So Marvin, being gospel and want to sing jazz, his thing is timeless. So let's say Gotta Give It Up is a DC song. What part of you not gonna mess your head singing? Billy Stewart, Summertime. What ethnic persuasion could make you hate him? If you ask any musicians, any of the majors, about Al Johnson, it's like he's the guru. Singing in a key, you could, I think I could say this formally and then don't bother everybody. You could flatulate and he could tell you the key. I don't want to be around it, but hey.
It's always people who walk the untrodden path, who change the greater culture on the planet. And that's, if you're Washingtonian, if you're a Black Washingtonian, you're kind of you're cued into that, and kind of is a source of pride. It's like every 10 years or so, we spit out somebody that's going to change something. And we just, who is it going to be next? And it's going to be in a different genre of music. It's not going to be what somebody else did before. So there are people working now, my contemporaries, people my age, people who are younger, who are quietly, they shift stuff.
Oh man, so many people. Rich Harrison, the producer, Scotty Beats, another producer, rest in peace. I think of a lot of jazz players. Federico Gonzalez Pena, who used to play with Michelle and who's a master keyboardist and arranger. Oh man, all the people from DC. I mean, you got to talk about hardcore and punk music. You got to talk about Bad Brains.
Bad Brains is the core influence for pretty much all of modern rock and roll.
Bad Brains is our go-to. Bad Brains is our go-to. One, they started metal and screaming, like they started it. And it's also dope that they're from right here in DC. They were in Southeast performing metal music and screaming and being loud and bold and different. I was introduced to them, of course, by my dad. He drilled me with Bad Brains. Like, you gotta know them, they're from the city. So I've watched like a few shows that they've done, and they're different. Bad Brains is very different. They're talented, they're brave. Shout out to Bad Brains.
From the store. Leave me inside. Leave me inside. I love the mazes I have in my mind. If I stop dreaming, will I survive? If I stop living for me, I will die. It's not for you to understand. Misery is my best friend. You're contagious, pestilence vibes. I'm on a prowl for my brilliant mind. Leave me inside. Leave me inside. I love the mazes I have in my mind. If I stop dreaming, will I survive? If I stop living for me, I'll die. You can't take me. Can't take me from all my dreams and who I am to me. Can't take me. Can't take me from all my dreams and who I am to me.
When you start talking about hip hop, I mean, I'm bouncing around so much, but that's because it's so vast. You know, everybody from Question Mark Asylum and Nonchalant.
Once I wrote 5 o'clock and saw its true impact, it was just like, you know, I've had a couple of out-of-body experiences where I'm seeing people, I'm seeing myself and seeing people react to the record and continue to react to the record. Still, to this day, amazing.
5 o'clock, 5 o'clock. Put your fives up. 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 Come on.
I kind of have this algorithm in my head where I'm like, okay, at any given part of the musical zeitgeist of what's popular, 1 in 12 people will be from the DC area. Somebody popular will be from around here, you know. And it kind of tracked, you know, going back to Johnny Gill when he joined New Edition.
You know, Maya went big. You know, she was a PG County girly. I think she went to Roosevelt.
And Maya and Tank are kind of part of that, you know, we feed people, DC feeds people into, we create people who are cultural influencers.
Another thing about DC, when you talk about artists from DC, there are a lot of artists that people don't know, but have really shaped the business because a not hidden secret in the music business is that if you need session musicians and touring musicians, if you need you need killers in the studio, arrangers, guys to take on the road, you come to DC.
This is like the city that I think hones musical genius. I really do. You know, you really get your chops.
You know, sleep at your own risk, I guess, because people don't know. The people who know. The people on the planet who know, you know, because there's a whole thing where a lot of touring musicians, they come to DC and try to poach the guys from the go-go bands because they can play. Because they know, oh, you get a dude from DC, they gonna play.
So many guys I knew, you just see them once and you don't see them for 6 months because they're on the road with Snoop or Bilal, or they're on, you know, just on the road. So that's another thing people don't know about, is that DC musicians, just more in the background, have shaped a lot of people's careers in the industry because DC just produces killing musicians.
Howard University, when I was there, the band was comprised of the Thunder Machine, and the Thunder Machine was all guys who learned to play percussion for go-go bands. So even though we didn't have as big a band as like A&T, you know, or Southern, in those band battles, because we had dudes who had grown up playing paint buckets and playing the go-go bands, it was called the Thunder Machine. So people who kind of know, who know music for real and know what it actually takes, and once you scrape away the hype and the marketing, but if you want somebody of quality and integrity, you know, this is a marketplace people come to get people. People come here to record because you can make stuff here, nobody's gonna bother you, nobody's gonna fan out when they see you at the Starbucks. So, you know, I would kind of, you know, tell people, look, just do a survey. Think about all the people who changed black music. DC is way overrepresented for the size of the city is. You know, and as a DJ, you know, I'm a DJ, so, you know, people sleep and they're like, we didn't know. And they come here and they're like, you know, and you talk to musicians who tour, and people, you know, tour and they like to come here because the audiences are locked in, because people understand what it takes to actually create good music. So there's kind of a, you know, I think Washington's one of those towns, you know, like I said, New York and the New York's, Los Angeles, London, whatever, they're always going to kind of be these hubs, these nexuses, these hubs of culture, because they suck up all the talent in their circle of influence. You know, a lot of people have to go to New York to pursue their goals. A lot of people got to go to LA, they got to go overseas. And that's, you know, that's not going to change. It's just a product of population and where the industry is. DC doesn't really have a music industry, so to speak, except for the homegrown stuff. But people know if a person's coming out of here, they're like, okay, I'm gonna give this person a listen, because typically those DC people, they have their own thing.
So many folks who've done great work here are still working, and that's what matters to me. Like, they've done great work and they're still working, and if, you know, the whole world doesn't know who they are, I'm like, are they feeding their families? Because a lot of DC musicians are blue-collar musicians, meaning so many people think that if you are a professional artist, you're either a broke artist or you're a superstar. But so many of my peers and the people I admire are like anybody else who goes to work. Anybody else who's a bus driver or a teacher. There are artists and musicians here who go to work and they do really great work, and they have long, successful careers, and they're not superstars, but the music is fantastic. I don't measure my DC musical icons based on how popular they are, if they're big stars. I just like that I see people working. And they're still working, and they're still working at a very high level. That's what inspires me.
In DC, because of the nature, because of the great high school done by high school. Remember, in those days, everybody, even when I was a kid, everybody played in some orchestra, whether you could play or not. And so you had the great, and so many would come and go to Howard, but Howard University, because it was a very elite school and it looked at itself as the mecca, it would not allow jazz. And so great Benny Golson, Billy Eckstein, Shirley Horn. All of those who went to Howard could not play jazz music there, so they came back later. It was only in the 70s because Howard saw, but Howard still produced those, and later on, Federal City College and UDC began to produce this music. Now, both UDC and Howard have great jazz programs.
I think the history of the music coming out of DC, it's all rich. It's all full of creative minds and creative, the fact that there's contributors to every single genre we can imagine that come out of DC or speak to DC or spend some time here. I think the relationship between that creative production and the fact that Howard is here are not separate. Those things are very much related.
Howard University, of course, is an engine of careers. School of Fine Arts. Everybody didn't go through the School of Fine Arts, but just Howard in general. So, yeah, Janae had jams that still resonate today, that are still essential to, to my rotation, to what I play and what I like. So, Donald Byrd and the Blackbirds, who, were created in the Howard University School of Fine Arts, and they made a song that's a iconic song worldwide about our beloved Rock Creek Park.
It was nothing more surreal or like people say in the 2020s now, meta, than being in Rock Creek Park at the little park where you can kind of drive through Rock Creek, and people would kind of hang out there and hearing that song coming off of the radio. Because people, this is pre-boombox. People would have to blast the music out of their cars. And hearing multiple cars playing that song in Rock Creek Park while people dance to it.
Well, I remember my mom would tell me when she was a student at Howard that she went to school with Angela Winbush, the R&B singer. You could say like A. Marie. Her career launched here. She was at Georgetown and she met Rich Harrison, and they made some big records, some records that I still love to this day. So shout out to A. Marie.
Zora Neale Hurston, she went to Howard. She did some things in this city. She told the stories, and she was into music and film.
James Reese Stewart, born in Birmingham, Alabama, came here and really learned music at Dunbar High School, the great school that produced so many people who are from Howard. When James Reese Stewart went to war, he fought in something called the Harlem Hellfighters, which was the great regiment of blacks in the World War, and they took music there, and he was in charge with becoming the commander of the jazz band. And the 54th, the Harlem Hellfighters, the Enfants Perdus in French, they had distinguished themselves as blacks because the notion was in World War I that blacks were not fit to fight, and they showed that they would fight because they were fighting for their freedom. And they went there and they took this jazz music there, and it never left. And so they internationalized jazz, the first to do it. Great dynamic piano player, just died too young, studied there, was the first person to get a degree in music, in jazz at Howard University in a program created by Donald Byrd. The great Shirley Horn, who chose not to leave DC, stayed here. You Won't Forget Me is her most famous one. Billy Taylor, I wish that I knew what it meant to be free. And out of Dunbar High School, and Dr. King would say, he didn't know that. He said, I want you to play that Baptist sounding song, because Billy Taylor used that music, and Billy Taylor, of course, became the director of the CBS band, and then became the first artistic jazz director at the Kennedy Center, taking music to the world. Sweet Honey in the Rock. And this is Bernice Reagan, the great Bernice Reagan, who just passed not long ago. And she had been a member of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee Singers in Georgia. And she came to Howard to get her doctorate degree and brought this music. And she sang this music throughout the world. Sang it to Mandela when he comes.
Donny Hathaway is good as living here.
You have Nancy Wilson. She's not from DC, but she's legendary. You have Angela Bofield. All these voices.
So you get artists like George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic that have played the 930 Club, both the original and the quote-unquote new, which is next door, and has been there since 1996. They've been there 31 times, and they just keep coming back.
Louis Armstrong also had a great role in jazz and Washington. He was here all the time.
This program was produced by WHUT and made possible by contributions from viewers like you. For more information on this program or any other program, please visit our website at WHUT.org. Thank you.